think sometimes some mercy will be tempered with the justice. Because we are human. We are human and we are prone to make mistakes. But then we have the potential to improve if held to account. And I think this potential needs to be tapped into because, we have to become better versions of ourselves just so that society becomes a more just experience for everybody involved in it.
Thanks. Yeah. So I guess we've heard from both speakers and both speakers have heard each other. So my first question really would be to hear more or less a response from each guest and the other guest statement. So maybe I'll start with Bright. What did you think about Ian's statement? Any similarities or differences or interesting points for you?
Well, I thought it was a very excellent delivery. Although initially I tried to say there was nothing like cancel culture. I wanted to see where he was going with that. And there is this general branding around the concept of cancel culture as, a left wing or leftist culture, which I personally don't think it is true. It has become one of the ways that the phenomenon in itself gets dismissed. Point of it to cancel something. I think, even before there was a thing we chose to call cancel culture, we have been canceling, from the beginning of time. Sure, you've done some things that can be thought of as cancel culture, just that you may not have called it that. And you don't necessarily have to be leftist or left-wing progressive or a right-wing traditionalist or, something going on that you don't like. You just take it out of your space. And that in itself is like at the core of counseling. Serve your purpose. That doesn't impact on you positively. You have to quit it. Maybe what makes this interesting again as a phenomenon is, for me, the sort of mob thinking that happens around it. In Elizabeth's writing, she talked about, people being afraid or wanting to be on the right side of the conversation, or on the right side of history. So if an influential member of the community or group said, Jens is cancelled because his beard is too blonde, there will be someone who does not necessarily think same, but just because there is a certain comfort in compliance or conforming, tend to also ostracize people and things and concepts without doing any personal reflection to make sure, whatever is going on serves their individual purpose. There's this mob thinking around it, which I think has the potential to blow things in the wrong direction. But I think either you are on the left or you choose to identify as someone on the right. If something doesn't serve your purpose, you just take it out of your space or your life or something.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why I said it's always a question of power, of course, and a question of who can talk and who can be heard. And I really like. I still had a hard time, but to the audio. But I really like that you had the notion of responsibility. So this is in Germany. Of course, no, not only in Germany, but of course, in the whole cultural history, there have always been people and positions and artistic positions and intellectual positions that have been cancelled because they were not heard. They didn't have any access to the media. It's only with the internet, like in Germany, that people of color, people who weren't born in Germany, migrants, all kinds of marginalized groups, they gained access to the media in the last 20 years with the internet. So it was a new experiences for blonde people with blonde birds, that they were not alone in the arena of the public discourse. So their positions were taken in question. So the way they react, some of them, the right wingers or the conservative people, they react to that is to say, shall we be cancelled? Are there only queer persons of color that dominate the discourse, which is nonsense, of course, but there are voices that haven't been heard, that have been cancelled before, and the term cancel culture was, as far as I can see, was coined by the right wing, of course, to arise the impression that all those common positions and heritages and traditions will be in question. And that's what we did all the time. And now there are people coming and saying, perhaps there's a problem. So you have to reflect on what you did all the time. So that's a very good point. And but on the other hand, the internet and the communication via social networks, as you know, leads to that people articulate their positions in a more aggressive or offensive way than they would do when talking to each other on a situation like we have now. So and there was I think it was no incident that there was explosion of complaining about cancel culture and people not talking to each other but apart from each other during the Corona crisis. So people sat in their tiny home office rooms and were riding the internet full and were shouting at each other via the internet. And so the temperature or the atmosphere of the public debate has become so harsh in the 3 years over the pandemic that even people I thought we are on the same path, or at least if we have a struggle and then at the end of the day we go to the bar and have a drink and talk it out. So we couldn't do it. So and things got even more aggressive than they should have been. So this, which is the kind of the negative side of the social networks. On the positive side is in the social networks, everybody can be heard and everybody can tell their stories and can tell their positions. This is a kind of a let's call it the dialectic of the communication situation at the moment, so that we have more freedom than ever and more possibilities than ever, but the possibilities often are not in a good use. So what's I don't know, would be the question. What's your experiences in Ghana with that?
Do you want to respond to that? What are the experiences here? I mean, you gave some examples, political examples, and those on social media. But I guess I want to circle around to you as an individual because of the work that you do. You're an artist, and a lot of your art is always a point of heated discussion on social media and the general public on this is wrong. You have one party saying this is wrong, this is disrespectful, this is not nice, he should be shamed, all of that. Another party saying we need more of this to share the opinions and views of people. So what is your experience with cancel culture and how has it shaped your thinking about the whole phenomenon?
In fact, the moment I got invited to have this conversation, one of the first questions I asked Liz was, why me? Because this it feels, or it actually is, That is not what it was intended to be. But the kind of work that I make somehow dabbles in this cancel culture. Especially also because a lot of my work exists on the internet and in these, social networks where these conversations are being had. And more often than not, these topics happen to be some of the themes in the work that I make. So you can think of me as someone who has been on
both sides
of it. The one who is encouraging accountability, not canceling. Encouraging people to demand accountability, cancelled or something like that as a result of this inquisition or art. Personally, the other part of this whole thing that interests me is the idea of sensitive. On the internet, we see reading the room. That's the term that we use for it. Read the room before you express yourself. I'd seen somewhere that, truth is important, but truth doesn't necessarily have to hurt. If the intention of carrying your truth across is to change someone's mind, then the mode with which you express this truth or you express this correction is equally as important as the import of whatever it is that you are saying is the truth or the correction.
Yeah, but this is another development, of course, with the social networks. I've been working as a pop music critic and as an art critic for like 30 years, I think now, and it's a different situation if you write a critic and you criticize artists, and with the social networks, the artists talk back. They never did before. So you had those privileged position as a critic. You write a review or a critic in a paper, and from time to time you find that artists are complaining about what you wrote or thank you about what you wrote, but you never had this direct back channeling which we have in the social networks. So in talking about art and the critique of art, there of course there's a different situation. But what I have, what you can also see, at least in Germany, from my experiences, that a lot of people think if you're criticizing a work of art or a record or a movie, and you don't like it, you want to cancel it, which is not the case, because criticizing something doesn't mean you want to censor it. You can say this is awful, and I didn't like it for this and that and those reasons. So, and there's a growing sentiment of fan culture of artists who react very aggressively on any kind of critique. So this is on the one side. On the other side, critics like me, in a way, I think we've become a bit more careful with what we write about works of art, because we know that there's a direct reaction. So you had those for decades. You had this kind of ivory tower position, and you're writing something, you didn't get any feedbacks, and you never knew what the artists were thinking about it, or you seldom knew what the artists were thinking about it. But now you're in kind of a discussion. So this is a kind of a new state of art criticism, which I find very interesting and challenging, of course, because you change the way you write in a way which is sometimes good, but on the other hand, it can lead to you better not say something critical, or you better not write something critical, even if you think it, because you are the next shitstorm is right around the corner. So, and this can be very demanding. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of my questions was really about the effects of cancel culture on intellectual discussions and discord, and opinions. So with the example that you gave, as a critic for over 30 years, you're in a position where you are challenged to in the way that you write, which when I think about it, I'm like, I don't. It's a good thing to be challenged, but then if the challenge is pouring water onto your work, are we really getting a proper conversation about work? Must it always be pleasing? That's a question that I ask myself. And also, are we being too sensitive in the way that we are not allowing for different thoughts to exist, and how damaging that is? So I guess my question is, what are your thoughts on what cancel culture is doing? Because now we have sensitivity reading, where all kinds of things have to go through sensitivity reading before they are put out there. And that's, in my opinion, waters down the strength and meaning of the work. So what are your thoughts on what cancel culture is doing to intellectual discourse and discussions and the existence of different opinions existing without hate or labeling? So I guess I'd like Bright to answer that first, and then we'll come to Jens.
Before I say anything, it's very interesting that he is an art critic, and perhaps, he has experienced this kind of harsh reactions before, so I'm sure he can talk about it. I saw one funny internet meme, but juxtaposed Rodin's thinker with some sloppy image, and just said that the thinker has been substituted by the feeler. Feeling and sensitivity has become a very, very critical part of your work as a critic, my work as a social commentator. And I was saying before he interjected that sometimes, if the import of your correction or your critique is to improve, to cause the person or the persons on the receiving end to change or improve, your opinion, you're very educated, you're very professional, critical opinion, is as important as the opinion itself. Because you want people to be in a position to receive your critique in a positive way. You want them to see that, I'm not talking harshly about this piece of art because I hate it, but I'm doing it because I see a potential that perhaps the artist is not yet in, and I want them to improve on it. That is your job as a critic. You see the artist grow. So the way you deliver your critique is equally as important as the critique itself. And myself, that is one of the reasons why in the past I have employed satire. Because I think the issues are heated. And if you think in Ghana, the sense of critical thought about a government policy automatically brands you as someone from the opposition. There is no way that you can have objective criticism without being labeled as a hater when it comes to politics. So I was saying it's one of the ways I've found that it helps me to do that. When you put satire on your critique, it's like on the medicine just so that it goes down easier. So
I'm trying to figure out, you can't put humor in everything, you can't put satire in everything. So where do we then decide that I'm saying this not because I'm on the opposite side, but because I think this is what I think about this issue?
I don't know if he
can speak on it.
Yeah, this brings us back to the notion of responsibility, of course, that you mentioned earlier. So as of course, on the one hand, as a critic, I think you have I wouldn't call it sensitivity. I think that notion problematic. Maybe we can talk about that later. But I think you have to be you have to show empathy with an artist or with the work of art, as long as you're on the same side, of course, because in Germany we have a massive right-wing turn in politics in the last circa 10 years. We have a right-wing party which has been massively successful, and we have a right-wing pop culture associated with those developments. So, and I can't feel any empathy for right-wing rock Nazi groups at all. So then and I can't feel any empathy for racist rock music. We have a lot of in Germany at the moment. So then at that point, I don't think you have to try to get into what they are thinking, but you have to say this is crap, of course. So this is and then of course you have then you gain a shitstorm from their fans and from the site. So but you have to accept it. This is part of the work of a critic as well. But